But now that I'm in hell, I may as well talk about politics, because, you know, politics sometimes will feel like I'm in hell also. Uh, let's go to video settings. Okay, brightness is at +50, this is where I left it at. The Argentinian election has come and gone, the presidential election at the very least. I don't know about the legislative elections, I might take a look at that in a minute. If I'm not mistaken, our news called them the Southern Trump, and they are right to do so. Javier Milei is the far-right candidate, was the far-right candidate, is now the far-right president of Argentina, very much akin to somebody like Donald Trump. Donald Trump in the United States is a little bit different, though. The one difference I would want to highlight between the two is that Donald Trump is a grifter who does not have any real values apart from not liking black people. He's, you know, the one thing that you could genuinely say about him is that he's racist. But with Javier Milei, he is an actual ideologue, at least insofar as we can feasibly determine his motives to be. He seems to actually care about the wokeness and the bullshit that he talks about, with dismantling the administrative state, and things like that. And he not only won the presidential election, but won it by a significant margin. Like, it was not close. Sergio Massa fell short by quite a margin, which has a lot of people starting discourse online that about the reasons why Sergio Massa lost. But ultimately, I think there's one reason in particular. Well, I mean, you know what? I shouldn't be so hasty. There are many, many reasons that a fascist would triumph in an election such as this. Part of the reason that they do is because they lie as easily as they breathe. This is part of the fascist repertoire. And even a milquetoast, not particularly ideal left candidate like Sergio Massa would have more regard for the truth and more regard for genuine policymaking than a fascist would. I don't think that's a really big stretch to say. But what else did I want to say about this? It was yes, I want to hammer in more on the point of him being the Southern Trump. Bolsonaro was a similar type to Javier Milei, similar kind of Southern South America Trump equivalent. And they have very, very similar attributes in how they market themselves and what policies they like. But the reason that this model was successful, I guess I can go into the more complicated stuff, is, well, first, as a matter of historical trends, historical patterns and things like that, it tends to be the case that whenever there is a time of major political instability, a fascist or reactionary populist will ascend to the top and win, you know, any election or race to be the highest public official in the land. And the reason for this is not because they have better ideas. In fact, it is precisely the opposite. It is because they have worse ideas that they win the election. And I don't intend to allude to some weird platonic the masses are stupid as the reason for this. The masses are stupid, but that's not why candidates like this win. The reason candidates like this win is because of the subtle machinery that goes into manufacturing consent. I've talked about this before, where people will support what they are told to support, and they will oppose what they are told to oppose by media outlets, because that's how people get their information. If they turn on the news and all they hear is this thing is bad or this thing is good, they're inevitably going to believe that if they don't have another frame of reference. And most people do not have another frame of reference. You know, it's only a very select few people that are genuinely able to critically analyze media messaging and break through the manufactured consent to see the world more or less for what it really is. I am one of those lucky few. I don't intend to laud myself on a platform for it. All it took was luck and effort. Anybody could get to that point. Regardless, I'm getting a little bit into the weeds. Why does the worst candidate win, and what does manufacturing consent have to do with this? Well, we live in a capitalist world, a world owned privately by business owners, by, hedge funds, and all those manners of people and organizations, right? And that class, the owner class, has a vested interest in keeping the world order the way it is, with them owning all the stuff, all the means of production, whatever. So, media outlets fit into this hierarchy somewhere. They are part of the capitalist class, at least the people that own and invest in and donate to these media outlets in such large quantities and, such large amounts of money, right? So, we now return to the election. With this environment of economics in mind, yeah, in fact, the investors made the far right win the elections out here too, and that's exactly what I'm getting to. So with an election like this in mind, or, an election in the Netherlands, wherever the election is happening, the capital class will always, without fail, and I mean always, prefer the rightmost candidate, the right-wing candidate. Business interests in the United States prefer the Republican Party, even though they are fascist. In fact, because they are fascist. I went over in another video where I talked about how I feel about communism and what kind of implications the word has, that the textbook definition of fascism, at least in its institutional sense, is when the power of corporations and the state are rolled together in one under the control of the state. And that the corporate enterprises, private enterprise, really likes that arrangement. They like when the state wields undemocratically the power of capital and things like that, because the state is always a better vehicle, unaccountably, at protecting their interests than it would be if there's some democratic accountability to be had. In layman's terms, business owners like fascism more than they like a liberal democracy. Both of these are liberal systems. Liberal capitalism is the name of the game in both a fascist country and a liberal democracy. However, all things being equal, business owners prefer the fascist country because it means that there's no impact, or at least a much lesser impact, that public opinion will actually have on things. That's not to say that liberal democracy is especially good with regards to public opinion impacting public policy, but that's the rub. So the same thing that always happens is what happened in Argentina, where business owners took a good hard look at both of these candidates, and they were thinking, okay, from our perspective, to ensure the safety of our interests, which one of these candidates would we prefer? And of course, they went with Javier Milei, because remember, Javier Milei's campaign promises involved gutting the administrative state. The administrative state, all those agencies and whatever, those are the agencies and the organizations and the bodies that are in charge of regulating private enterprise. And so Javier Milei, his stated mission is to get rid of those rules and regulations, which means that enterprises will be able to pursue profits however they choose, no matter how many people get hurt, no matter how many people get killed, no matter how much of the environment gets poisoned by their actions. Javier Milei says that is okay by me. And regardless of what Sergio Massa says, he's never going to be that insane. So they will always prefer somebody like Javier Milei, to Sergio Massa. That is ultimately why Sergio Massa lost. Now, you could be a smartass about it and point out, well, actually, he lost because he got less votes. Well, actually, why do you think he got less votes? It's because the media wasn't as favorable to him. It's because every news camera, because of the whole it bleeds, it leads mindset and the desire to pump up your ratings and all that, they turned their cameras basically unconditionally towards Javier Milei, because he's a clown show, and the news loves a good clown show to put their cameras on. That is why he won, that is why Sergio Massa lost, and that is why this keeps happening over and over and over again. It's why it happened in the United States, it's why it happened in the UK, it's why it is happening in Argentina now, it's why it happened in Brazil. Capitalism prefers fascism to democracy. This has always been the case. that was really wordy, and yes, sadly, it is a very unfortunate fact of the world. It's fascism is basically the language of capitalists in distress in some ways. When capitalism reaches a point of crisis, right? We can talk about like the 2008 financial crash. We can talk about the pandemic and all the economic crashes that happened as a result of that. When capitalism hits that kind of wall, where it's no longer able to sustain like an ordinary life for people, when things really start falling apart, then business owners will be like, whoa, hold on now. We need to keep people from getting uppity, because that's people's response to things like that. People's response to crises is to get uppity and upset and to search for some solution to their woes. And in order to deflect that, capitalists turn to fascism, the far-right strongmen that will say, hey, we see you, we hear you, all of your frustrations and all that, the world isn't how you want it to be, and it's because of those damn Jews. That's the line of the fascists. And capitalists see that, and even though some of them might, idly grit their teeth or whatever, they think, well, it's better than socialism. And so they side with the fascists. This is why, as far back as Nazi Germany in the 1930s, the German industrialists and capitalists were the ones that gave the Nazis the influence, money, and power to accomplish what they did. Nazism in Germany, in no small part, was the fault of capitalism and capitalists. Such is the case also with Argentina. Anything that happened, ultimately, is the fault of capitalism and the capitalist class, the capitalist property relations in Argentina. Because they would rather have somebody like Milei than somebody who would maybe in some milquetoast fashion offer, like, I don't know, a mild challenge to their ability to, like, plunder the resources of the land and work people into the ground. And it's super frustrating, too. Because it in moments like this, you do kind of realize that in large groups, people really are dumb. I mean really dumb. Groupthink is a very real thing. And that's part of what that's part of what makes manufacturing consent so effective. When all of the news outlets are saying, wow, look at this guy, this outsider, this maverick, Javier Milei doing his thing, people are going to see him as an outsider and a maverick and a rejection of the status quo they've been living with. And the status quo in people's minds is the problem. They don't know what the status quo is or what to really call it. All they know is that it hasn't been making their life better. And so through some process of elimination, however faulty it may be, a lot of people will reason that any rejection of that must make their life better.